It sounds like the guy makes good money, but he was still feeling heavy, right? And the idea that I think you planted is, well, what happens to you when life changes? What happens to your
Mm,
family?
yeah.
What if income were to slow down for some reason? Like, what would you have to give up first? And if you're funding someone else's system before your own, who's actually in control, right? We want to help folks build freedom, not obligations. And that's understanding the money game. That's understanding that, like it or not, you were born into finance. Finance didn't, you don't choose it, it chose you.
Welcome back. Here we are again, another episode of WealthWise Banking. I'm Jason Sipple here in the city beautiful Orlando, Florida, and I'm with my favorite co-host, Jeremy Lee Huggins. How you doing, Huggy Bear?
Hey man, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
I always like to try to bring different names for you every time. So, we talked about this episode, and the other day someone reached out to you on LinkedIn. They asked, "When did you get into finance?" And what you responded prompted this entire show. I think it's brilliant. Can you tell us what you told that member?
Yeah, so I actually responded a little bit as a joke, believe it or not, because I like jokes. We covered that on the last episode for the April Fool's Day one. But I just told him, man, like I got in finance the day the IRS gave me a social security number. And here's the kind of thing about it. It was a joke, but it also kind of set me back. It's like, you know what? There's some truth to that. But most people, they hear the word finance and they think Wall Street, they think stockbrokers, they think charts, right? Spreadsheets. They think about people yelling into phones, Wolf of Wall Street, so to speak. But that's not what finance really is. Finance is about your paycheck. It's about taxes. It's about debt. It's about your rent or your mortgage. It's about your retirement accounts. About what happens when life shows up. And you didn't have to choose to enter the world of finance. You were actually born into it. Let that sink in for a moment. You didn't have to choose finance. Finance chose you the moment you got a social security number.
Yeah,
So they already
if
had a
you're
play.
born in the States, right? The moment you were born, 15 days later, you were in the finance game.
That's it. And you don't have to, the question isn't like whether or not you are in the money game. The question is, do you know how to play the game?
That's
That's
true.
really,
Has anybody ever taught you the rules to the game that you were born into?
that's it, man. That's it. So that's what we want to get into today, right? Like you earn money, you pay taxes, like you save it. You can lose control of it, like a lot of us do, until we figure out we're tired of losing control. But until you learn how to direct it, that's when you start learning the rules of the game.
That's it. We get taught, and think about this, we get taught the laws of nature, right? We get taught that an object in motion tends to what? Stay in motion. We get taught, hey, you can't just walk off a ledge because there's this thing called gravity, right? Isaac Newton with an apple falling on his head. We start understanding that water has to stay in motion. Our bodies have to stay in motion to stay healthy. Just thinking about that, how often have you been taught about the game of money?
Well, it's one of those faux pas subjects. You're not supposed to talk about money, just like you're not supposed to talk about religion. You're not supposed to talk about politics.
But
But
why?
again, yeah.
Why? I want to know why. It's more
Well, I'll
fun.
tell you, wealthy people are talking about it by and large. I think that the reason the middle class and the lower classes aren't talking about money is because you weren't supposed to talk about money at work. You weren't supposed to know what your boss made, right? And they wanted to make sure everyone was quiet about it. But the wealthy, they talk about money. Their kids talk about money. And you should be talking about money because you were born into finance before you could walk, before you could talk. At the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah, and I love this because this is something that intentionally, like when I read this, I was thinking, this is it. This is why I do what I do. This is why I'm telling Connor how much I make every month. This is why we're talking about money. When he spoke today for something, he's like, "Dad, can I get $1?" I'm like, "Sure." He asked me an hour later, he's like, "Can I get two?" I'm like, "No, you negotiated $1." He's like, "I'll go ask mom." But we start having conversations and having fun because we just said it's a game.
Mhm.
It's a game, and it's when you start understand the rules, like you don't just like imagine this, Jeremy. Imagine that no one showed you how to play. I don't know, pick a sport, rugby, right? You were a great rugby player. No one showed you how to play, and you just went out in the field thinking it was football. Like, how would that go?
Oh, not too well. A couple penalties, couple injuries, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
But
you
you
got
will learn to play if that's the way you want to do it. If you don't want to study the game, you can learn on the go. You just may not be successful at it. You may not win the game.
Well, isn't that what most people are trying to do? They're trying to win the game without knowing the rules. Like one of my favorite quotes is by Einstein when he said, you have to know the rules of the game and then play better than anyone else. Well, at 15 days old, when you're getting that social security card, like who's there explaining the rules of the game that you just signed up for the rest of your life?
Yeah, exactly. And so when I hear someone say, "Hey, I'm not a finance person," I kind of chuckle, with this new perspective because, like it or not, you're already in finance, right? If you're getting paid, you're in finance. If you need money, if you're paying taxes, you're in the game of finance as it is. If you have bills, debt, savings, investments, all of our fire people, the financial independence, retire early folks, you're in finance, like it or not.
Yeah, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, I guess I'm here to bring quotes today. Zig Ziglar said, money might not be the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with oxygen. Like, try to
Yeah.
live life without it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if I'm thinking of like occupations, well,
That
everyone needs oxygen, but if we're looking at folks who don't think that they're in finance, I would look at the artist.
Well, I was gonna say, let me do this one. You got the artists, right? They're in
Yeah.
the money game, and they're probably saying, I don't know anything about money. It was like what I did for years.
Hmm.
Attorney, you're not in the legal game, you're in the money game.
Hmm.
Doctor, you're not helping people, you're in the money game. The dog walker's in the money game, the house cleaner in the money game. So some people think that finance is about numbers. Most of the time, it's really about control.
Hmm. Yeah, once you start seeing that, you start asking better questions, right? If you can get the money game down, if you understand the money game, you can be a better artist. You can be a better doctor. You can be a better attorney. You can be a better dog walker because you no longer have to worry about money.
You
That's
can do,
it.
yeah, you can do all of those things. And that's the beautiful thing about the laws of wealth, right? Which we've talked about in another episode. It's about understanding that you can control and you can actually win the game by following the laws. Okay, we got a guest appearance. We were just talking about you on our show. So, and that's amazing, right? And the third part is the systems teach participation. Now, when I saw this one, Jeremy, I know we're going to get into it. You're gonna have to keep me on track because I started thinking about all the other systems that taught us participation, not ownership, besides money.
Yeah. Yeah, because the system trains people to participate. That's what they try to do. It's not about control. It teaches people about compliance at the end of the day. Go to work, get a paycheck, pay taxes, build up credit, use debt, right? Contribute to your retirement. And you're going to keep going on and on and on. That sounds pretty familiar, right? Go to work, get paid, pay taxes, go into debt, buy a house, save for your retirement, rinse and repeat, then die.
And then the
That's
next
it.
generation does the same thing, but now there's maybe more, right? Because maybe you had a couple of kids, and now your kids are doing the same things. They're gonna start doing a job, getting paid, putting in the bank, getting credit, building the credit, paying taxes, continuing that cycle over and over and over until somebody asks a different question.
Yeah. And so what is the alternative? What's the alternative to participation?
Well, first we got to ask the questions, right? You start asking, where is my money going? Instead of what is the system rewarding? Who is this system rewarding? Like the one I'm currently in. Who benefits first the way I handle money? What happens if life changes? How much of this is really designed around my freedom? Like that's where the shift starts to happen.
Yeah, it's a shift from participation to ownership. That's what it is. Now you're owning the system. Now you're in control. Now you understand the rules of the game. And when you understand the rules, that's when you can start bending rules. I mean, we don't say break them, but you can't bend a rule if you don't know the rule. And everyone talks about tax loopholes. So they're not loopholes. They just know the rules of the game.
You have the
That's it.
7,700 page book and growing, right? They know the playbook.
That's it.
And that shift, after thousands and thousands of calls, that shift often starts with discomfort. I had a call the other day with a guy, it was my third call with him, Jeremy, and he told me he wanted to break the pattern. He was this episode. He was not only a good, high earning W 2 employee, he also was an entrepreneur. He had cash flowing assets. So he had, to our April Fool's episode, he had good debt, right? Where he was actually having cash flow come in and he knew that he wanted to do this. And what he said to me at the end of the call, Jeremy, he said, Jason, I just got to talk to my wife. I said, get out of here, man. I said, you're like my friend David who called me up and said, hey, I want to do an Ironman. And I'm like, okay, cool. Pick a date, sign up, put skin in the game. He's like, but Sip, I can't swim. I know, David. I've surfed with you. You really can't. But you know what? When he picked a date, when he signed up, when he did the thing and he started training, to make the story really short, within 4 months, he completed a 2.4 mile swim when he couldn't swim further than 40 yards at the beginning.
Hmm.
So I had that guy. I'm like, no, man, you're not going to tell your wife this. You're going to show your wife how you take back control of the day. And she's going to be, why do you feel different? What's happening? Like I had him start the application process because if I would have just let him go, he would be still here stuck in this episode.
And not feeling secure, right? Because he's
That
not
discomfort is
he's
what I'm
not
talking
moving.
about.
Yeah, he's not moving the needle at
Yes.
all, and that's where the real fear starts to happen, right? And that's why you need to start waking up, and that's what you're doing. You're trying to jolt him to being awake. So, I mean, I'm. It sounds like the guy makes good money, but he was still feeling heavy, right? And the idea that I think you planted is, well, what happens to you when life changes? What happens to your
Mm,
family?
yeah.
What if income were to slow down for some reason? Like, what would you have to give up first? And if you're funding someone else's system before your own, who's actually in control, right? We want to help folks build freedom, not obligations. And that's understanding the money game. That's understanding that, like it or not, you were born into finance. Finance didn't, you don't choose it, it chose you.
That was his thing. It was exactly what you just talked about. It was, Jason, it feels uncomfortable. Of course, it's new, it's uncommon. People aren't talking about it because it doesn't benefit them. What you're doing today benefits them. We want you to benefit you first,
Mm-hmm.
right? Once you have that realization, people usually stop looking for more tips and they start looking for clarity. They start understanding that, hey, there's a different path. And so here's a question for everyone listening. When money is quiet and the day is over, what question still lingers for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what do you feel about that though? Like it's not just that question. It shouldn't just be a logical one. It should be a feeling. Like, do you have an area of your life that feels financially heavy, or an area of your life that could be lightened if you understood the why? Why does it feel heavy? I asked this question to someone the other day because they said, "Hey, Jeremy, I want to do this because I want my kids to have a better life than I do."
Mm,
And I just responded, "What does better life mean to you?"
yes.
And they paused and they were like, "I don't know." And as that person kind of went down, the rabbit hole, they said, "Well, it's money." And I go, "Hang on. Money doesn't define values. Money doesn't give vision. Money doesn't give direction. Okay. So it can't be money. A better life for your kids than what you had growing up isn't a money thing, but you are in the game of finance. I think what you're actually experiencing here is a lack of control. And if you had more control and your children had more control, fewer obligations, more control, I think that would actually be a better life. So we had to go down, and I don't want to, retell the entire story, but that's really what we were getting at. And it's kind of like this matrix moment when you start to realize it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to take the red pill or blue pill, right? You're going to keep staying plugged into a system without even realizing it, or if something feels uncomfortable, that's when you unplug from the system, that financial system. That's where you start to realize, hey, you know what? Something else is more real and this is tangible and I can do something about it, right? Taxes are normal, guys. That's going to happen. Debt is normal. Credit, it's normal. You're going to try keeping up with the Joneses. Like there's always that feeling, especially with TikTok and Instagram and everyone telling you that all this life is grand. All of that's normal, but it may not necessarily, be affecting your eternal happiness. And we got to look at the real life. When you have emergencies, when you have tax surprises, when you have family needs, how do you respond? How do you have that clarity? What do you have to do that? So
And the question you said you kept saying normal, right? Keeping up, normal. Working for decades and hoping the plan holds, normal. Hoping paying your future self is going to work out in the long run, normal. Do you
mhm.
really want normal? If you're listening to us, my guess is like, is normal what you're looking for?
Yeah. And I mean, you can go your whole life trying to be normal, and then you'll wake up and realize it was too late to do any changes, right? And that's why we implore you. Like, just because you may not feel the pressure today doesn't mean you won't feel pressure. And the best time to make a financial decision is before the urgency arrives.
And that's it. When you're aware that there's pressure, that's where your journey really begins. Because now you can start asking that question, why do I feel this? And then you ask the question, what would it feel like if this was no longer true, if this was no longer an obstacle?
Yeah. How does your whole setup actually work? How does this game of money, the game of finance, the one that I was born into, how do you actually play it? What are the rules? What are the rules of the game?
Yeah, and what changes when someone moves from being that borrower to that builder, right?
Hmm.
They stop looking for one product, one account, using whatever's left over, one trick to fix everything. I watched a guy scratching off a lotto ticket furiously the other day, right? A guy who I could tell he's been working blue collar his whole life, working hard. You could tell by looking at him, right? And just scratching, 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 hoping that he was going to have a miracle rather than looking at what's actually happening today, like how the money's flowing, what is under their control, what creates options, what would protect their family, what builds long term strength. This is when financial life stops feeling random. Look, problems are real, right? We all have problems. If you're listening, I guarantee you have problems. They're not going away. The question is whether you're going to play by someone else's rules, continue to down the normal path, follow old habits, or are you going to start taking baby steps towards owning your own life?
Yeah,
And
that's steps towards clarity, man. That's what it is. It's the awakening. It's taking the blue pill and getting clarity, not the
yeah,
other blue pill.
I was gonna say, a much different expression on your face if it was the other blue pill, my friend. So at some point, this information stops helping unless you actually look at your own life.
Mhm.
We want more action, less learning, less thinking, and more, well, maybe not less thinking, but less wondering, like, what do you need to do? We can show you. And it's the uncommon path. It's the not normal path. And so at some point, the information actually stops helping you unless you actually look at your life, like I just said. So, Jeremy, what would you say to that?
I mean, you're going to keep in your money patterns if you don't interrupt the pattern. And I think the first thing is realizing, hey, I was born into finance, like it or not, I am a finance person. But how can I now learn the rules? Now I've had this awakening. How can I learn the rules of money? Um, I've, I've told the story before. I've grew up, we were not wealthy, and I watched my parents not win the game of money. And you've shared your stories of going through financial struggles. Folks, we've been there. We tried playing the game without understanding the rules. And then we read one book, and that was our blue pill. That was our awakening. That was what helped us unplug from the matrix. And then we started being around like-minded people. That's why you're listening to this episode. That's why I asked you to go listen to previous episodes. And you can get all the education you want, just like this other guy was saying, hey, I'm going to get this education, then I'm going to talk to my wife, I'm going to do these things. But the real next step is action. And that action is going to wealthwisebanking.com, booking the call, and we're going to show you the rules of money. We're going to help you take back control. Now that you have this realization, hey, you know what? Like it or not, I'm in finance. But now I need to understand the rules. Now I need to figure out the rules of the money game.
That's it. Go to WealthWise, schedule a call, take action, and your life will change. You'll be out of the matrix right away, right? So you're already in banking.
You're just not the banker yet. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week. God bless.
Thanks for joining us on WealthWise Banking. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and give us a like. It's a simple way to help others discover these empowering strategies and join our community. Together, we're building a network of people who believe financial freedom is within everyone's reach. Remember, financial independence is about making every dollar work for you, one step at a time. Until next time, stay inspired, stay in control, and keep building your legacy the wise way.